This is a Xenolink data view analysis for Josh Stokeman. This is for a baseball swing collected in July of 2012. We'll take a look at the performance profile to start, where we'll look at performance factor indicating how effective the hitter is in utilizing peak speed or peak power potential at impact. So we're going to look at the percent of maximum angular speed used at impact and the percent of maximum linear speed used at impact. The numbers are actually pretty good. We see 82% utilization of the angular component, which is pretty good, and 86% of the linear component, which is also pretty good. But you can see that in an elite level swing, we'd like to see utilization above 90% in both areas. So this just tells us that although these are pretty good, there's quite a bit of speed that's produced or power potential that's actually being produced in the swing that is not available at impact. It's being leaked out prior to impact with the ball. When we look at the kinetic link, then we're looking at the power generation process itself, where we're looking at the rotational speed output or power process from the ground up. So we look at the rotational speed output of the pelvis, the upper torso or upper thoracic, the arms, and then as we get closer to the impact zone, we're looking at the rotational speed output of the bat as it releases from the arms and accelerates into impact. Foot contact occurring over here, contact with the ball occurring here. What we see is a pretty good basic kinetic link, especially when you look at the relationship between the torso, the arms, and the bat. We have a good relationship between the upper torso, accelerating the arms, then releasing the bat, and we're pretty close to releasing that bat right through the impact zone. You can even see it visually as he comes in, storing up that power, transferring it from the torso, the body, the core, to the arms, settling the arms, and then right here we're releasing that bat. Just reaches its peak just a little early, but pretty good. Where we're lacking, number one, is in using the legs to drive the core. So the core drives the arms and the bat fairly effectively, but the legs don't drive the core very effectively. So we want to improve our ability to drive the process, not only to create more bat speed, but to create a better sequence which allows that bat speed to be delivered with optimal speed output or maximum power through the impact zone. The second thing we want to do is to, although this is pretty good, we can improve the relationship between the core and the arms. The relationship between the arms and the bat is really good. So we don't want to really do much there outside of learn how to use the body more effectively, starting with the legs, but also the core to accelerate the arms so that we get more bat speed and time more of that peak speed through the impact zone. When we look at stride dynamics, we look at the relationship of the stride itself, the length of the stride relative to hip width. So we're looking at the length here from ankle to ankle relative to the hip width. And here we see, typically like to see somewhere between 3.5 to 4 times hip width in stride length, and that's about what we see. It's a little on the short side, but really right on the edge of our normal range, which would be about 350 to 400. Stride is just a little bit closed, which is good. So stride overall is pretty effective. It might be a little bit short, but in general, pretty effective. So we want to learn how to use that stride to be more effective creating force. So when the foot is on the ground, lead foot pushes this direction, rear foot pushing this direction along the ground. That force, the ground reaction of that force being applied is translated through the legs to the pelvis, which creates rotational speed. So we have to learn how to use our feet and our legs more effectively to create the force and transfer the ground reaction to that force to the pelvis. The more you use your legs and the bigger muscles of your body to accelerate the smaller muscles and body segments and ultimately the bat, not only the more speed are you able to create, but the more efficiently you're able to create that, which improves your consistency with delivering that speed, but also your accuracy. Core stability is actually pretty good. We see maybe just a little more right bend to begin, usually a little bit neutral, even a little left bend before we go into that right bend. A beginning posture is good, maybe just a hair upright, but actually it's pretty good. We have a nice slow extension pattern. So core stability is actually pretty good, but we want to use that core stability to engage the core musculature and transfer speed better between the lower body and the upper body. With respect to loading, What we're looking at here is as the lower body accelerates, the muscles across the bottom of the core, the obliques in particular, are loaded and stretched. They respond by contracting, which then holds the lower body as an anchor to whip the upper body. And that muscular activation is really important to an effective ground-up power process. And what we'd like to see is acceleration of the lower body, acceleration of the upper body, and those muscles being triggered right at that transition. And what we see here is mostly just backswing, or not backswing, but set up early loading before we really get into acceleration. So we want to improve our core loading dynamic. Upper body loading is better, and that's where we have better relationship between the torso and the arms. But as the torso rotates this way, we stretch across the upper back, shoulders, and arms, both sides, and then we get an acceleration of the arms off of that. So we'd like to see a little bit more like this, and we'd like to see nice load dynamic there. We do see the load dynamic. It can be a little bit sharper, a little bit more effective, but we're starting to see that. As we improve the lower body dynamic and core dynamic, we're going to see that between the lower body and the upper body as well. The last thing that we'll take a look at, bat dynamics, is essentially the delivery of the speed into the impact zone. So we've got speed and we've got also direction. So as the bat is being accelerated into the impact zone, with the ball here, what we see is of the total speed, first the speed peaks just prior to collision, speed directly back to the pitcher peak just prior to collision, then starts to slow up, and then we get a little upward outside-in speed coming in. But they're very minimal, missing the key peak speed just by just a fraction. So we're very, very close to delivering maximum, not only maximum speed, but maximum blow in terms of the direction of speed, compression of the ball, and acceleration of the ball off the bat. So direction as important as the amount of speed for compressing the ball and accelerating the ball off the bat. This is very close to being optimal, but as we improve utilization of the lower body, core dynamic, we're going to improve timing and direction. So we'll do that by focusing on lower body as our primary, the core dynamic and relationship between the pelvis and the upper torso secondarily, and then continue to work on release of the bat and acceleration of the bat, although the dynamic between the arms and the bat is pretty effective already. We can always get better with that. So that would be the last thing that we're kind of focused on.